John Metchie, wide receiver out of Alabama, coming off a really productive year, 96 catches, 1,142 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's 5'11", which kind of like took me by surprise. I had to double check that. Like specifically,
taller than you thought, or smaller than you thought?
Taller.
Okay,
because I thought he was smaller. Like when I was watching the Alabama versus LSU. Now, kudos to LSU with all those big defensive backs. I thought he was like 5'6". Like watching versus LSU, because those defensive backs are like so much taller than him versus that game. Because that's the first game I watched. I'm like, oh, he's a little bit smaller. And then I double checked. I was like, no, he's 5'11". Like, how big are those backs at LSU? Sweet baby Jesus.
Stingley.
5'11", 187 pounds. Going to be 22 years old in 1 month when the season kicks off. Didn't run any of the combine numbers because
coming off an ACL.
Tore his ACL.
Yep.
So
it was an SEC championship game, right?
SEC championship. It's where he tore it in December.
Georgia. First game against.
Played about little under half it. 47% of his routes were from the slot. That's where he lined up. And this is somebody who has a really good route runner, which is usually always translates to me to fantasy points. When I see guys like John Metchie, who the way he runs his routes, it's like, okay, Hunter Renfrow, you mentioned his name earlier. Like those guys win and they can produce and they can put up wide receiver 1 numbers occasionally, like Hunter Renfrow did this year. Gets out of his breaks really, really well. Quick feet, smooth in space. Still probably going to be a slot guy at the NFL level too. That means way less these days because those guys actually succeed. Plays pretty physical, plays tough. Like that out of him. Obviously, some cons here. Tore his ACL in December. Not super fast. So it would have been nice to see his 40 time because like he does.
I would be very interested to see. I think he's probably a 4.4 guy. He's definitely not a 4.3 guy.
No,
like
I would say he's probably mid to high 4.4s.
Yeah,
I guess like 4 or 5.
Which is fast, but not like super fast. You know what I mean? Like it for a guy his size, it's good speed. I think he gets up to top speed quickly on film, which is something I like. And this is a team that they had Jamison Williams to take the lid off the defense. You know what I mean? He was like the downfield guy. I think Metchie worked the underneath stuff pretty good and was still able to get downfield. Sure. It's not like he's incapable, but they have Jamison Williams. He was just better at it, so I think he was used more in that capacity. But John Metchie, he's another wide receiver that I think profiles similar to Garrett Wilson, similar to Jihad Donsett. These are guys that are probably best in the slot, but they can play out wide, so they do have some versatility. He can do a little bit after the catch. He's not as good as either one of those other guys after the catch.
So this is actually. So when I do my scouting and I'm watching film and I'm taking notes and then I'll go back and read some scouting reports of people that I appreciate. And I read like 3 scouting reports of saying like guys I respect a ton and that are successful in this business. All 3 of them are like John Metchie, really good run after the catch, really good. I'm like, did I miss something? I went back and I was like, I don't see him like being tremendous after run after the catch.
He's not tremendous. I think he's okay. I think he can.
I thought he was okay at best.
I had him slightly above average.
Yeah, I think he's okay. I think he can do a little something here and there, but he's not like.
Did I miss something? Because after I saw that report, I literally went back and watched more tape to see if I was like, did I miss that? Because like I don't
have him like elite numbers, but I have him slightly above average.
7.5.
That's what I have.
What's the average? 6.5.
6 is average.
That's my nerd score. 6.5.
I think he makes people miss, and he runs pretty physically out in the open field, and he's got speed.
No, he runs physical, but again, it just I didn't see like the run after the catch that there's big plays after the catch. Sure. I just didn't see it, and I watched at least 5 games of John Metchie, so maybe it's the other 6 games that I missed.
Well, I watched the LSU game as well. I watched A&M. I'm trying to think of those. Georgia. The first one.
And I don't see the Garrett Wilson closest with him either. Now it sounds like I'm starting to poop on him a little bit because, dude, I mean, his contested catches were like subpar. Like some of his timing was a little off there. He dropped some easy balls at times, so his hands were like okay.
He has the worst score for hands in the class for me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought his hands were just okay. Like he dropped some easy. There's another player we're gonna talk about. Like he dropped some.
Christian Watson has the lowest for me right now.
Okay.
So he dropped some easy balls at times for me. So that was a concern. My overall feel about John Metchie, then Gary can get into it, was that he's one of those guys that's really QB friendly. Like he's somebody that in the right offense, he's the number 2 guy, and he sees the targets. Like if the targets are there, he's going to produce fantasy points. Which it's easy to say about any player, but I feel really confident about him being able to get open, produce, and being a wide receiver 3.
He runs good enough routes. He's coming from a pro style offense, and I think he knows knows how to get open. I think that's what you're kind of trying to say. And
Jarvis Landry.
He's got, I think,
Jarvis Landry has much better hands.
I think he's got more. He's got more juice than Jarvis.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. In his legs, but yeah, like you said, he's not as good at
and most people weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, Jarvis set an NFL record for catches in his first 7 years in the league. So,
yeah.
What do you think of? I mean, obviously, you say he has the worst hand grade
for me right now, and part of that
There's
is
a couple guys.
Part of that is his ability to just catch the ball flat out, but part of that is also I also factor in like spectacular catches, like can he make like the over and above catch?
And I
literally did not see a single catch that was like oh man, nice hands on that catch. Like it was, he caught the ones he was supposed to catch, but then often he wouldn't even do that.
Some body catches too.
Versus Texas A&M, PFF had him with 3 drops just in that game alone. He had 2 more against LSU, and that was maybe being generous because there were 2 or 3 against LSU that weren't drops, but Jameson Williams would have caught him. Garrett Wilson would have caught him.
Yeah.
Jahan Dotson would have caught him. So I think that's the thing here is we're talking about an okay athlete that isn't great in contested catch situation, doesn't have great hands, can do a little bit after the catch and is decently quick. So I'm underwhelmed with him. I think he's going to do okay draft capital wise just from being from Alabama and decent name under Nick Saban, but I think he's a little overvalued to me.
I think he's a mid-second round pick that's
for Dynasty.
That's kind of like, I think there's some safety that comes along with him. Like, because I think he's somebody who's going to be in the NFL. He's going to be around for a while, but I feel like he's.
There's not a ton of ceiling.
You're not starting him many times there. And for me, where he's going to be going, like, I would rather gamble on a guy we're going to talk about next. Who we're going to, I mean, like,
sure.
I'd rather take that upside of him. But I do think there's some safety with like Metchie in the right offense. Like, I'm intrigued about where he goes. You know what I mean? Because he does offer some safety because he's a very solid wide receiver, but nothing special about him.
I think he's a dime a dozen. I think there's plenty of John Metchies out there. He's lower percentile for height, weight, length. He doesn't go up and win at the catch point. I mean, he's just plug him in your slot, and I mean, he is what he is.
But there's a role for that in today's NFL though too. That's where
there's plenty of guys that can do the same thing.
There is, but in the right offense, if he's the guy doing that thing, then he's going to produce fantasy football points.
Yeah.
So that's the intriguing part about him. Like, he's a safety net there. You're right. There's a lot of guys that come out there, but I think his profile, like Garrett said, coming from Alabama, being a Saban guy, it's going to boost him up a little bit because he is playing amongst the best of the best.
Yep.
You know, so I think that does help. So and that's where I think like he does offer a little bit of a safety net in a mid-second round. Like, if you're like, oh, I don't know who to take, and you don't want to really risk it for the biscuit, I think Metchie's an okay pick. Me personally, I would rather get a guy like Metchie in the 3rd round, than the second round.
And I think that's the reason I probably won't have him anywhere, because I agree. I think he's like a safer prospect, but after I get into the 2nd round, all I care about is ceiling, and I just don't think he has it at that point. And so I just don't think I'm going to end up with him many places, because best case scenario, I see him as like wide receiver 32.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
It's startable.
But that's best case scenario. And like, if that's your ceiling,
but isn't it like, you're right, the 2nd round, like, oh, there's no way. But like, you're at picks 3-3 and Metchie's on the board, like, oh, okay, there's value there.
Sure,
like,
I mean, at least you won't miss potentially. But
I mean, I would take him for sure in the 3rd round. I'm thinking about it.
I just think
name
name-wise, I think he's gone before that.
Yeah.